The first reading is a reading from Jeremiah. Thus says the Lord, this is what I commanded my people. Listen to my voice. Then I will be your God, and you will be my people. Walk in all the ways that I command you, so that you may prosper. But they obeyed not, nor did they pay heed. They walked in the hardness of their evil hearts and turned their backs, not their faces, to me. From the day that your ancestors left the land of Egypt, even to this day, I have sent you untiringly all my servants, the prophets, yet they have not obeyed me, nor paid heed. They have stiffened their necks and done worse than their ancestors. And when you speak all these words to them, they will not listen to you either. When you call to them, they will not answer you. Say to them, this is the nation that does not listen to the voice of the Lord its God, or take correction. Faithfulness has disappeared. The word itself is banished from their speech. The word of God.
May God be with you. Thank you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the Sheep Gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath, and so the religious authorities said to the man who had been healed, "It's a Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat." But he replied, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" So they asked him, "Who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk?" The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd and was not there. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the authorities that it was Jesus who had made him well. The Gospel of the Lord.
So a couple months ago, Reverend Seeley asked me if I would be willing to speak at a Thursday night during Lent. And I said, yeah, I'd love to, but it happens to be I'm giving up public speaking for Lent. So there's your opening joke. For seriously, if there's anything that you remember about what I speak tonight, it's not the opening joke, right? 4 words. 4 words. Expect more, get uncomfortable. I've lived with my disability for about 33 years now. One of the main things I want from society regarding all disabilities is to expect more. Some of you know me pretty well. Quite well, some. Some barely at all. Some maybe have never seen me before or were up on the webcam. You may know I had a spinal cord injury when I was young. You may be able to see that I use a wheelchair to get around. So it may strike you as a little odd to know how many occasions I've been approached by a stranger and they spoke loud and slow to make sure I understand them. Expect more. I was at a fundraiser one time many years ago. The woman that had been seated at the table with us was having a good old time talking with my CEO. They were getting along swimmingly. came to the part of the conversation where she turned her attention to me. And she begins with, "Chris, do you work?" At the time, I'm a 30-something-year-old white guy wearing a shirt and tie at a fundraiser. I have all of the trappings of privilege. This should tell you I probably have a job, probably a pretty good job. But there's something that kind of threw her off to, "Do you work?" Expect more. Every time I go to Wegmans, it's an adventure and inspiration. I can't tell you the number of times where I'm simply shopping, and I have to actually push past the people that are trying to, quote unquote, help me so that I can get my task done. It's like, could you please just get out of the way so I can get my cereal? The number of people that will stop me in the store to tell me it's an inspiration seeing me there. It's simply an inspiration that I am there. It's Wegmans. I'm out of bed and dressed. This is the inspiration. Some people will go on explaining that they just don't know what they would do if they were like me. I had one person go past that to say that if they were like me, they would probably just end it. Let's expect more of disability. How about the time I just finished pushing my sports chair about 6 miles? The type of thing that is maybe a little bit inspirational. I got done. I was putting my chair back up in my car. A woman nearby stopped and said how great it was, how impressed she was with my independence, and how I reminded her of the 77-year-old woman she used to take care of. Seriously, folks, expect more. I broke my neck when I was 14. I finished high school. I graduated college. Went to 3 colleges. I graduated from 1. I've had good jobs. I've done cool things. I have a lovely wife, 2 amazing, most of the time, children. There's nothing magical or amazing about any of that, really. It's just society sets the expectations of people with disabilities so low. You know, if what I've accomplished is impressive, it's because society constructs so many barriers for someone like me to simply do what others consider to be routine and mundane. In the intellectual and developmental disability community, there's a motto about assume competence. Assume competence. If you're not sure if a person can understand you, if you're not sure if that person needs help, if you're not sure if they need help getting an item off the shelf, if they have a job, if they're able to drive, assume competence. Have you ever been offended because somebody thought you were capable of doing more than you actually can? Nah. And so why do we assume that people with disabilities can do so little? Expect more. So how about get uncomfortable? My other 2 words of the night, get uncomfortable. We're already doing a little of that. You know, in this context, we're used to seeing the speaker up on the altar. We're used to having the priest elevated up on the altar. But tonight, I can't get up on that altar, so nobody gets up on that altar. We're also not used to a disabled person criticizing society for offering help. I'm not used to speaking as part of a religious service. We're all getting a little uncomfortable. It's good. So let's go further. Let's criticize how the Bible portrays people with disabilities. Here comes the sacrilege. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed, we heard in the gospel. We're all just waiting around to be cured. Piled up next to that pool, it sounds like. You know, we're just an object for Jesus, God, Yahweh, Allah, Buddha, whomever, you know, to demonstrate their power, demonstrate the power to cure. You know, normal citizens are told to be good to us because that's how you earn your space in heaven. So now instead, picture yourself as a person with a disability, a person part of the disability community. Society and religion teach that you're largely incapable of doing for yourself. Your main desire is to be cured of your condition. Those that do help you can earn themselves a space in eternal bliss. Those that are truly powerful can cure you of your condition. They cure you of being how you are and who you are? But what if you like how you are and who you are? Uncomfortable now? Getting there? Good. A few years ago, I took a job as the executive director of the Rochester Spinal Association. It's a small nonprofit focused on the needs of people with spinal cord injuries. This is well within my abilities. This is very comfortable. But one of my first tasks was to diversify the organization. When I started, if you looked around, you would think that spinal cord injury only happened to white people in the suburbs. We needed to work on that. Through my wife's new job at Strong Hospital at the time, I was able to start meeting really almost every person in the region with a new spinal cord injury. This included a lot of young black men and women who had been shot and paralyzed. Now, I know a lot about spinal cord injury and the resources available to help with that, but I grew up in the sticks and I live in an affluent suburb. So when these young men were telling me that after discharge from the hospital, they'd be back living on the same block where they used to deal drugs, or they would be 2 blocks from where they got shot, or they were worried that the person that paralyzed them was going to come back and finish the job and kill them. Or one guy who was telling me that he knew who killed him, and when he left the hospital, he knew who paralyzed him, and when he left the hospital, he was probably going to get his gun and kill that guy, because that is the culture of the streets. That is outside of my comfort zone. I was fortunate to have colleagues that they themselves had been shot and paralyzed many years prior. They helped me navigate a space that for me was very uncomfortable. This led to us establishing a group that was specifically for people who have been shot and paralyzed, so they can support each other. The group has been a great success. We've expanded well beyond Rochester now. It meets every night on Zoom. 4+ hours they're on Zoom. Drop in, and it's included people from all across New York into Massachusetts, Delaware, Virginia, Louisiana. We had a couple guys from New Jersey join us yesterday, Portland, Oregon, several guys from Texas, a couple other states I'm forgetting. So it's really been a great success bringing people together to support one another. Meanwhile, the more Jill, my wife, and I got to know the people, the more we got angry about how society treats the people. When someone's shot, the media gets their headline. Bleeds, it leads, right? Every night on the news. The right-wing people say we need more police, we need more good guys with guns. The left-wing people say we need more gun control laws, we need fewer guns. None of them are seeing the person. Society doesn't see the person, they see a chance to score a political point. So let me be clear. People get shot in all sorts of different circumstances. Some are very much involved in drugs and guns. Some are bystanders when violence breaks out. Some people are innocent, targeted by a domestic abuser. All of them are humans deserving of all the support we can give. The young men that I've been working with assumed they'd be dead by 25. Society assumed that they were violent criminals and they should be locked up. I've come to understand that under some tough exteriors are some very mushy young men who want to be loved and appreciated and want society to assume their competence and expect more of them. One man that I spent a lot of time with first saw a friend murdered when he was 9. 9 years old. He himself first shot when he was 12. He was paralyzed at 34. And at 35, when I took him to an adapted kayaking event, it was the first time he had ever been on a body of water of any sort. He was uncomfortable. He still swears I tricked him into it, but he enjoyed every second of it. We need to expect more of people with disabilities, people of other races, different genders, social classes, of our racist uncles, and of ourselves. We really only grow when we are uncomfortable, and that's what Lent invites us to be, right? Uncomfortable. And we can be uncomfortable because we're giving something up. We deny ourselves something, we give up sugar or coffee or cursing. But wouldn't it be more uncomfortable to admit where we are weak and where we can improve? Sure, it's hard to go without caffeine or cursing. And maybe that will remind us of the suffering of Jesus or the suffering of a 9-year-old boy whose friend was just murdered in front of him, but maybe we can do more to get ourselves uncomfortable. With Lent, we're invited to reflect on ourselves, and what if that reflection leads us to question? To question, can I be a better spouse? Can I be a better parent? Can I be a better citizen? Too many of our efforts are within the realm of staying comfortable. We often invite people to make themselves comfortable. But today, let's invite each other to be uncomfortable. Let's help each other go to uncomfortable places. I'm often critical of advocacy efforts that allow us to stay comfortable. We feel better about ourselves because we sent a letter to our legislator. We sent off a harshly worded tweet to a stranger on the internet. We did our civic duty and we voted for the lesser evil candidate who's sponsored by the same greedy corporation that's supporting the more evil candidate. We stay comfortable and nothing changes. As long as we follow the rules that are set forth by those in power have nothing to fear. Has your advocacy included things that make you uncomfortable? Has it pushed you outside of your comfort zone? What have you risked to make this world a better place for the things that you care about? Most of you probably remember a couple of years ago, the Rochester Police Department murdered a naked, mentally ill man on a snowy night in March. Very much like tonight, only with snow. When the news broke many months later, Rochester protested. We protested in ways that were not sanctioned by the police, the chief, the mayor, or any other power brokers. It led to more violence from the police. I was proud. That Spiritus Christi was acting as a refuge for individuals, protesters being pursued by those police. I was proud to see Reverend Meyer confronting RPD, protecting protesters. Proud to see my daughter go from a first-time protester to an aspiring street medic in the midst of weeks of protests. During one of those nights of protest, I was knocked out of my wheelchair by RPD and dragged a short distance across the street by one of the officers. I was held on the ground, and the ground is kind of where the tear gas and the pepper spray settle. I was taken into custody for a few hours and eventually released. All of that was actually the easy part for me. I'm comfortable with that. The hard part came over the next few months. My boss at the time was a conservative, wealthy white man who had explained to me earlier in the year, firmly, that white privilege doesn't exist. So as the news of my situation with RPD spread across social media, I knew my reckoning would come. For the next couple months, I watched uncomfortably as I saw my boss maneuvering to fire me. And I'll spare you the details, but assure you that there is a happy ending because I'm here and I'm still the executive director of the Rochester Spinal Association. And more importantly, I'm still doing work that sometimes makes me uncomfortable as I learn to expect more of others. So I guess I'm here tonight to invite you along a journey where we expect more of each other and get uncomfortable. Thank you.
Don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. No one said it would be easy to be loving, but the Lord is right there with you and His love will never end. Don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. Well, there is hatred in the world, people hurting and in pain. Will you be the one to love away the pain? Or will you walk away? Well, don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. No one said it would be easy to be loving, but the Lord is right there with you and His love will never end. Don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. Well, don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. No one said it would be easy to be loving, but the Lord is right there with you, and His love will never end. Don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. We are called to serve the Lord. We are leaven to the earth. Let us raise our voices in our song of joy, celebrating our new birth. Well, don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. No one said it would be easy to be loving, but the Lord is right there with you, and His love will never end. Don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. No, don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend. No one said it would be easy to be loving, but the Lord is right there with you, and His love will never end. Don't give up on what you're doing in the world, my friend.